Spring had rolled into summer. Lots of adjustments were being made in Mitch and Jane's life, not least moving for the second time in 2 years. Mitch's house in Bootle was comfortable and she enjoyed looking after it and him. More in love each day, one day melted into another and the year was ticking by fast. On coming back from honeymoon, Jane and Leanne had met up for lunch in town. "So, how was the honeymoon? Everything okay?" asked Leanne with a wink. "Yes," replied Jane. "It was lovely. Everything was fine." Leanne raised her eyebrows. "Everything?" she said slowly. "Yes, everything," came the reply. The city of Liverpool has 4 religions, Catholic, Anglican, and if those two don't appeal, there's blue or red, the colours of the city's 2 football teams. Liverpool FC were involved in the Champions League this season, having surprised everyone by slipping past Chelsea, the English League's champions, much to the delight of the fans, including the Adams brothers. They were all looking forward to the final in Istanbul, Turkey. On the day of the final itself, a big screen was being put up in Williamson Square. Mitch, Jane, Leanne and Frank were all going there later to watch the match. "I'll meet you back here in a couple of hours. I just need to sort something out first," said Jane, as she and her husband browsed through the Liverpool shop in Williamson Square that afternoon. "Where are you going? Is everything all right?" Jane smiled and nodded. "Just got to nip to the doctor's. Nothing major," she added hastily at her husband's look of concern. "You sure you're all right? It's not your heart, is it?" Jane swiped him playfully. "No, don't be daft. I told you, it's nothing serious." As night fell, the crowds gathered in Williamson Square. The quartet had also gathered. Leanne had left Charlie with a neighbour, afraid all the noise would upset him. As they watched the players of both Liverpool and AC Milan troop out on the screen, the crowd held their collective breath. The match was beginning. "Oh no, the idiots!" cried Frank and Mitch in unison as AC Milan's 3rd goal went in. Jane put her arms around her husband. "Cheer up, love. Miracles happen, you know." Jane smiled inwardly. Indeed, she knew firsthand never, ever to discount miracles. As former Liverpool manager was heard to say, football is not a matter of life and death, it's far more important than that. The gloomy looks confirmed that theory. Suddenly, hope started anew as captain Steven Gerrard scored the first goal for Liverpool. Cheers resounded everywhere and the fight back began. When Xabi Alonso scored a second for Liverpool, the place went wild as Vladimir Smicha hammered home a third. From 3-0 down, Liverpool had come back, and now the game was in extra time. Still 3-3 by the end of extra time. There were plenty of nails bitten to the very quick as the game went to penalties. The last player for AC Milan stepped up to try to hammer home the goal. Jerzy Dudek saved it and the game was over. The place erupted in happy cheers. From the depths of despair, miracles do happen, and as Liverpool celebrated, erupting into bursts of "You'll Never Walk Alone," the foursome made their way to a pub. As they watched the captain proudly take the precious cup on the television that was set up in the pub, Jane leaned over to her husband. "Can we talk in private?" Mitch frowned but nodded and got up, accompanying his wife outside. There were still a few revellers, but it was quieter than in the pub. "I knew something was wrong earlier. Please tell me you're all right." Jane laughed and kissed him. "I'm fine, you daft beggar." Mitch looked confused. "In fact," continued Jane, "I'm more than fine." She held her husband's gaze for a few seconds before continuing on. "I'm pregnant," she said slowly. Mitch smiled broadly as the words registered before pulling his wife into his arms and holding her tight. "Bloody hell, how did that happen? I thought—" Jane laughed. "I could draw you a diagram if you like. The doctor says I must be a marvel of modern medicine. He reckoned the problem simply wasn't as severe as they'd feared, that's all." "Oh, I'm so relieved, love. That's such great news," he murmured, his head buried in her shoulder. They stayed like that for a few minutes, Mitch almost sobbing into his wife's shoulder. "You sure a pregnancy won't be too much of a strain on your heart?" he asked at last when he pulled away. Jane shook her head. "No, the doctor told me as long as I look after myself and get plenty of rest along with regular checkups, there's no reason I shouldn't have a healthy pregnancy." Mitch couldn't help smiling. "When shall we tell everyone?" "Give it another couple of weeks. I have my first scan then, and I know things are really all right," came the reply, to which Mitch nodded. Making their way back inside, Jane smiled as she caught sight of Leanne and Frank. Leanne was leaning over the table, talking to Frank. Frank leaned over also and kissed her. It looked like she was kissing him back. Jane smiled happily. "Well, would you look at that?" said Jane dreamily. "Looks like they're a proper family again. I knew they would work it out." Mitch playfully nudged his wife's arm. "You're as bad as she is," he laughed, as they rejoined Frank and Leanne, who were both looking a little sheepish. Jane couldn't help smiling as she swallowed down happy tears. Life was the loneliest stretch of road. It was very few precious people that could touch your life and make it better, a hand to guide you to safer pastures, or indeed give a gentle push if need be, like walking on a windy day with the wind at your back, pushing you home. Yes, Jane thought she liked that analogy very much. And as the crowd in the bar began for the upteenth time to sing "You'll Never Walk Alone," Jane thought to herself, "No, Jane, you never will walk alone."